Well, friends, like I told you, I'm going to welcome my new guest, Bruce de Torres, to the program. Welcome, Bruce, to the program. So glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Amber. Great to be with you. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And I'm glad that you came on my show today because the government shutdown. I wanted to talk to someone about how has this affected small business. I mean, Fox did an article recently about how the shutdown has affected a small business. And I thought I'd have someone like you come on and talk about it. So Fox is saying shutdown crushes small business owners as losses hit billions. Industry leaders beg Congress for a clean CR. Small business owners are losing billions in funding due to government shutdown, with industry leaders publishing a letter Monday demanding lawmakers plastic, and this was a few days ago because this article is a few days old, pass a clean CR to open federal government. What are they talking about here? What are the small businesses funding that they're losing with the government shutdown?
Wow, you just hit the bullseye, Amber, because there's precious little funding. That is a smokescreen. That is what most often the federal government talks about. Typically, when the federal government talks about small businesses, they talk about loans from the SBA, the Small Business Administration. Even that's a misnomer because the SBA doesn't issue loans. They back loans to businesses that go to local lenders and apply. And the federal government talks about that so often. You would think so many of our small businesses get these kind of loans.
Mm-hmm.
There are 36 million small businesses in America. They are 99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses. Okay. And they want to give you the impression that, oh, we're giving so much support with these loans.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is, it's less than 1% of American businesses ever get an SBA backed loan. The federal government does next to nothing for small businesses. Now we could talk about the impact of the shutdown, but that's the answer to that first question.
Okay, so who is giving the small business loans? Is it local banks? I mean, if it I was always under the impression it was a small business association. I'm glad you clarified that for me. And so if it's not the federal government through the small business, then is it just local banks doing it? Is it other organizations giving out these small loans? Like how do they get the loans then?
Individually, privately on their own, any loans that a small business gets to either start or to function or a special project, that's completely up to that private business.
Okay. So has the government shutdown really affected small business?
Yes, as
In
you
which
said.
ways?
Well, in the traffic that's the business that they're not transacting because the government workers who are not going to work are not patronizing their stores. Every business that's relying on a federal government agency for either a license approval or a permit approval, dead in the water. And the cost to the economy every week is something around 8 or $10 billion a week during a shutdown. And
Wow.
every week of a shutdown, that figure grows. And then let's say they ended the shutdown today. The residual effects of the damage already done continues to cost the economy billions every week for many, many weeks and for many, many months. It's an abomination. It's just further proof of how the federal government does nothing for small businesses, for regular Americans. This is an abomination that they have come to this, and they come to this every now and then. Every now and then there's a shutdown. Typically they last 2 or 3 days. A bad one lasts a week. This is now historic because it's in the 35th or 36th day, and I believe that breaks the record.
Yeah, it does. It breaks the record. How did you get involved? Like, what made you want to get involved in working with small businesses? You're a part of the American Small Business League. I'd love you to talk about that, but I'd like to talk about your journey on how you even got involved in supporting and advocating for small businesses.
Thank you. 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I was hosting a podcast and I was looking for truth tellers and muckrakers. And I discovered a man named Lloyd Chapman on Twitter, now X. And I liked what he was posting, and I had him on my show a few times. And then after a year or so, he said we should do a podcast together. So we started doing a podcast together, and he's the founder and the president of the American Small Business League. And then last winter, he said, "You should work for me." I said, "Well,
Oh,
let's talk about that." And I came on board almost a year ago as the director of communications. What Lloyd Chapman has done for 35 years, and then 20 years ago, he organized the American Small Business League to continue doing the same, is to expose the fact that small businesses are supposed to get 23% of all federal contract dollars every year. And every year, the SBA, which is responsible for managing that, says, "Victory, we met the goal, we exceeded the goal." And Lloyd has found for 35 years, through 100 and plus legal victories, Freedom of Information Act, legal battles, that the vast majority of all federal contracts, including those that are supposed to go to small businesses, Amber, go to the 0.1% of businesses that are big businesses. Small businesses in reality get maybe 3 or 4% of the federal contracts. Here's the
wow.
problem. Not only that deception, it'd be nice to be able to trust our government, our
Right.
representatives. Those big businesses don't create one new job to perform the work of those contracts. They're already big. But if small businesses got 23% of the federal budget every single year, they would create about 2 million new jobs to do that work,
Mm.
on top of the 2 million jobs that America typically creates every year. It would be prosperity and an economic boom, I like to say, of epic proportions poured into the middle class. But instead, over many, many years, the small businesses are starved and under assault and attack. Great example is what happened during COVID, how
Mm.
small businesses were forced to shut while $5 trillion in aid was poured into the biggest businesses. Once again, proving the unfortunate reality that Washington is, to all intents and purposes, completely captured by giant corporate interests.
Yeah, I've been kind of talking this week about my show, and there used to be a time where people could come to the United States of America or even born here, right, and create wealth for themselves. They could start out poor and end up being millionaires, billionaires, and you could do that with hard work and dedication. But over the years, with the monopolies and all the big businesses that have ate up all the smaller industries, it is very hard to compete, to be that former American dream where you used to be able to create wealth for yourself if you just worked hard, had a goal, competed, and were good at what you did, because the marketplace used to dictate who was going to win and who was going to lose. Now it seems like it's almost impossible for that to happen because the big businesses, with the collusion of government, we've had monopolies. I mean, you have a handful of companies that control everything. When you go to the World Economic Forum and the globalists all meet, they don't have to convince a whole bunch of CEOs because, like, let's say the Hiltons, for instance, they own all kinds of hotels, big, small. We used to have that, just a good example because when you travel, there used to be the motels, then the medium-sized hotels, and then the big resorts. They're all owned by 4 or 5 companies like the Hiltons and the Wyndhams. The cell phone companies, we used to have several of them, small companies, large companies. Now 3 own all of the cell phone companies. So how do you compete in that?
By talking about it first and foremost, having these kind of conversations and working really, really hard to get up to the date and accurate information. And you're right in saying that it's nearly impossible because surveys show for many, many years, really decades, Americans are working their tail off in order to make ends meet.
Mhm.
More than one job, paycheck to paycheck, more and more. I believe the poverty numbers are growing. I believe those living at or near poverty are growing. And at the same time, of the 36 million businesses that are small businesses that are 99.9% of all businesses, about 26 or 27 or 28 million of those, Amber, are just the owner. They are non-employer firms. So that yearning to be your own boss, which is the impulse behind the American dream,
Mhm.
is still alive. It's part of being human. It's still happening. People are still forming new businesses. Each year by year, it's at greater or lesser numbers, and the struggle is epic.
Mhm.
It's been known for decades that most new businesses, half of them are out of business in 2 or 3 years, and 80 or
Mm.
90% are out of business by 5 years. That's how, unfortunately, brutally hard conditions are due to the corporate and government collusion, the use of our government, the capture of our government by the giant banking and corporate interests, which, by the way, is the best definition of fascism. My source for that is fascist Italian dictator Benito Mussolini in the 1920s. He said, if you didn't call it fascism, you might as well call it corporatism because it's the merger of state and corporate power.
Mhm.
Historian Jim Mars said in Nazi Germany, the state took over the corporations. In modern America, the corporations have taken over the state. The result is the same. So, and Frank Zappa, the musician in the 1980s, said politics is the entertainment division of the military industrial complex, meaning it's show business for ugly people. That's what many people have called
Oh,
politics.
yeah.
So this now I'm getting to your question. What do we do about it? I said have conversations like this, work really hard to get accurate information, and parent ourselves on each other. You can do this. They're there. Tomorrow's another day. Never give up. Never give up.
And so teach me a little bit more because I don't know a lot. This is the first time like I'm really hearing about the American Small Business League. Are you guys more or less the ones fighting for the small business, or do you do another kind of role? Like, do you mentor small businesses? Tell me about a little bit more about the organization because I really don't know very much about it.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful for the chance to do that. We are exclusively focused on exposing the fact that big businesses get small business contracts for the great solutions and results that I described earlier.
Mhm.
If they obeyed the law, if they stopped pretending and lying that they're meeting that goal, we would have that economic abundance. And the SBA highlights its loans. It talks about its loans and some mentorship programs, sales, marketing, things like that. And the contracting provision of the law is rarely, if ever, talked about. Or they like to make you think that, oh, we give tons and tons of contracts to small businesses when it's just not true. So it's just an opportunity for economic prosperity that was created in 1953 by the Small Business Act that said a fair portion of federal contracts must go to small businesses. Over the ensuing decades, it's become codified as 23%. So that's what we're in the mission of exposing that and encouraging people to hound their representatives and senators and the White House. Is this true? Because if you Google search right now, Amber,
Mhm.
you would find, oh, the federal government every year gives 23% or more of federal contracts to small businesses. Everything's
Yeah.
fine. You have to go to our site, asbl.com, to dig into the history and the documents and the documentation that shows we've been doing this for 35 years, winning a record number of legal battles that expose this. And there have been dozens of congressional investigations, Amber, that have found the exact same thing. And also Inspector General reports from the SBA's own Inspector General has regularly found when they look at it, like, yeah, the diversion of small business contracts to big businesses is the biggest problem
Mm.
involved with federal contracts to small businesses. We have another huge project we're very excited about called Don't Cheat Women, but I want to give you a
Yeah.
chance to ask any questions about anything I just said.
No, no, I'm glad you're exposing this because I guess I believe the lie too, thinking that our government was supporting small business when I should know better. Just looking at COVID was a good example of how they didn't. I mean, if you really thought about it, and I was expressing this during COVID, you would be safer shopping at the small business than going to the large place, because why? There'd been more people there. So if you really thought about it, truly the lies that they were propagating, that we have to close small business because, hey, we don't want to spread COVID. But go ahead, go to the big box stores and go shop there at the Walmarts and at the Targets and at the Best Buys. Make sure you do that. But hey, avoid at all costs the small business, because that's where you're going to get sick. I mean, it was like going to the restaurant. You were fine. You had to mask up, but as soon as you sat down at the table, you could take your mask off at the restaurant as if the virus only was up at this level. But once you go there, the virus was gone. I mean, it was so deceptive, and the wealth transfer was enormous. So I'm glad you're exposing this, because I guess I was believing, and I shouldn't have, but I guess I was believing that, yeah, federal government was still supporting small business. And I was stunned at some of the things I was reading about the women. You want to go into that a little bit? Yeah, I'd like for you to talk about what you guys are doing to help small business owners with women.
Thank you. I will. And then I want to ask you, when did you start looking behind the curtain and discovering, reality? But the project we're promoting the most is called Don't Cheat Women. We have a website, don'tcheatwomen.com. And we lay out the reasons why we're asking for about three things. We want the percentage of small business contracts that are supposed to go to women-owned small businesses raised from 5% to 15%. Here's why. Women obviously are half the population. Many people say they're more than half the population. Great. Amber, women own 40% of all businesses in the United States. They sell what the government buys. They're represented in all industries. And they own over 14 million businesses. They generate almost 3 trillion in revenue. They employ over 12 million people. Why, oh, why is the goal only 5%? If it was going to be fair, it ought to be half of whatever the total figure is. So we want everyone to go to that site, see all this reasoning and logic, and contact Congress, your congressperson, your senators, and the White House. Raise this, okay? And also define a small business as 100 or less employees. It shouldn't, small business contracts shouldn't go to companies that have 500, 1,000, 2,000, and even more employees, because of the 99.9% of all businesses that are small businesses, of all businesses in America, 98% have less than 100 employees. The average business has 6 to 8 to 10 employees. And like I said earlier, 26, 27 million of them are just the owner. Okay.
Yeah.
So that if women got 15% instead of 5, the percentage of contracts going to small businesses as a whole would go from 23% to 33% of federal contracts going to small businesses. That would create around 3 million new jobs on top of the ones we typically create every year. And here's another massive reason, okay? Without economic equality, women cannot pursue political equality. Women are not political equals in the United States today in 2025 because men earn and save more than women. So they donate more to politicians. They have more influence at that level. And it's easier for them to run for and win office. Listen to this. 75% of all seats in the House, the Senate, all state legislatures, every president's cabinet are men. Men hold almost that many governor chairs, and they fill 90% of committee chair and party leadership positions. Women are not going to be political equals until they've got the money and the freedom and the power and the ability to run for and win office. Women have different sensibilities than men, different values, different political priorities. They are half the human race. We need all of the human race's intelligence, instincts, values, priorities shaping our public policy and our government. So that's why we're very, very excited about that. It's kind of our, our foot in the door. And we have found about 1,600 candidates for the midterms next year, running for the House and for the Senate. We're writing all of them and teaching them this and saying, run on this. This is nonpartisan. This is human. This is prosperity. This is economics. We guarantee you will win if you run to end discrimination against women in federal contracting.
Well, I think it's admirable. I mean, being a male yourself to fight for women, I think that's very admirable. And I would thank you guys for doing so. I saw on your website that it's easy for people to get involved, that if they wanted to reach out to their congressmen, their senators, all you have to do is what can you do? And then you copy and paste this letter and you can send it. Should they send this also to their state, or just is this strictly federal? Because I keep seeing federal. Is this strictly to go to the federal level, the senators and congressmen on the Hill?
That's what we would be very happy when enough people do that to
Okay.
actually write new laws. Then it would be a luxury for every American to see what requirements of state contracts are supposed to go to women-owned small businesses. Many states do, maybe all states do. We're focused on the federal thing. And then if you've got the luxury of time, bombard your state representatives for the same results.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool that you guys are focused on women-owned businesses, because you're right, it is a growing population. And I don't know. I don't know if women just aren't interested in politics. I'm not sure. I am. I mean, I'm involved locally here as a precinct and state committeeman. I've helped write different bills. They haven't been made law yet. We have a crazy governor who wants to veto everything. So nothing I've worked on, unfortunately, has made law. But at least I've been down there at the Capitol, work with local senators and representatives down there. So
But
I'm sure there is a portion of women. I just don't know overall how, if I'm an anomaly, if women just don't want to get in the ugly world of politics. I'm not really sure. But I appreciate you. And what was the founder's name again?
his
Lloyd?
name is Lloyd Chapman, and folks should follow him on X, because he is outraged by many different injustices, and he posts all the time about that. And he conceived the Don't Cheat Women project because it really followed his agony over our foreign wars, and he just realized, and he also realized, wait a second, if women are only are supposed to get 5% of the federal contracts, and they rarely, if ever, get that. That means, why are 95% of federal contracts going to companies owned by men? When you do a little research and you see the things I said before, like women have all these businesses, they sell what the government buys. What the heck is going on? So it's about raising awareness of it. You mentioned your governor vetoing things. Amber, what state are you in?
Arizona. Yeah,
Okay.
we have a Republican-led House and Senate and a Democrat governor, and she's vetoed just about everything since she's been in office. So it's been really hard to pass legislation here. But I felt like maybe women don't want to be in politics, but maybe they do. I don't know. I know that when I try to bring up politics, people are like, I don't want to talk about it. It's ugly. It's ugly. And I guess you and Lloyd would know that better when you're trying to pass things like this and get it. I don't like injustice either, and I can't keep my mouth shut. So when I see injustice done, I always have to speak up. And at every meeting we have at the precinct level, I'm always raising my hand, always saying stuff, because I can't stand injustice. And I told you earlier before the show that me and my husband want to start our own business, and we're looking forward to doing that soon. And I mean, I have my own media company, so I guess I am already running a small business and have been. I just never really thought about it that way until a few months ago when I got my LLC. I'm like, I've been kind of running my own small business. And my friend, I was just talking to her as we dropped off our kids at school. Her and her husband run a small business. And so that's kind of why I wanted to have you on, because I'm interested in small business and I want to expose this. And I don't know why I ever believe the government that they ever help a small business. So when I saw you come through, I was intrigued to have you on. And I want to thank you for the work that you're doing to help not only women-owned business, but just small business in general, because it is the backbone of the United States, or it should have been, or it used to be, right? And we want to preserve that. That's why conservatives are conservative. They want to conserve, right? Not progress it backwards, but conserve what we have and move forward. Because I think you and I have the same idea. We want to build wealth. like how our country was founded, that if we just worked hard enough, if we had a really good product, that we could go from poverty to the billionaire status. And that was possible here, but we have to get through the weeds and get through the captured. And I like how you framed it in the beginning, how corporate has captured the states. And I like how you framed that with the example of fascism, because I guess I never thought about it in that sense. I mean, I saw the captured part, but the fascism part. So I want to thank you guys for your work and spending time with me today. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you very, very much. I'd love to be back anytime. This is endless, and I'm fascinated by anyone who's questioning authority. That's what you're doing, Amber. And that is the heart and soul of being an American. It's we're supposed to be the boss. They're supposed
Right.
to work for us. That is still a revolution in human affairs. It's
That's
still
right.
that's still the American Revolution is, hey, just because you're bigger and stronger than me, might doesn't make right. In America, rights are supposed to make might. And
That's right.
especially that's hand in glove with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's really being crushed out of existence around the world. And especially here in America, we've got the best chance to revive these kind of ideals. But the window of opportunity is unfortunately shrinking by many measures.
Absolutely. Well, Bruce, I appreciate you and all the work you and Lloyd are doing there. And again, if you guys want to check out the website, it's don'tcheatwomen.com, or you could go to ASBL.com, ASBL.com. That's AmericanSmallBusinessLeague.com. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you.